Well, he tested positive. So as previously stated, I teach driver's ed. In my state, if you are under 18, you are required to complete it to get your license. As pissing off the driving schools is a generally bad idea if you or your kid wants a license before they graduate. This is about someone that royally screwed up to a point I was about ready to murder a family. Due to a couple students canceling their classes, I ended at 5:30 instead of my usual 10 p.m. Wednesday a few weeks ago. My office got an email at 6:05, 5 minutes after closing, informing us my last student tested positive for COVID. Me personally, I was frustrated because it meant I couldn't spend my weekend with family as I'm the only one who isn't immunocompromised. Worse, my sister and Nibbling can't get vaccinated due to a history of bad reactions to other vaccines. And their GP doesn't want to risk tanking what's left of their immune systems. My boss and the company owner were beyond pissed when they saw that the next morning, as that means the company has to pay me to take a few days off and go get tested after 5 days. Deciding that half an hour to get test results was a bit short for the area cat. My wonderful supervisor that showed up in an r/malicious compliance story started digging. According to the student's high school that we partner with, that his entire band had been tested the previous Friday, because a student at band camp got a positive result the prior Tuesday. So they knew when he showed up for his first lesson he was positive, and sent him to sit in a car with me for 2 hours. To say it flipped her top is an understatement. She wasn't happy about one of her instructors being put at risk when it wasn't necessary. So she went the nuclear route and started calling every driving school she had a number for and letting them know about the family. She then turned around and emailed the student's mother and informed her of a few things. Highlights because I was backed on the email. He was being removed from the program, as he still hadn't finished the online portion of the curriculum. Any progress on it would be deleted from our records. He would not finish his behind-the-wheel lessons. Other driving schools were aware of why we were refusing to work with her and her family, and would be following suit. Finally, we would be keeping the amount paid in advance for his lessons. If she chose to take the case to court, it would be pointed out she had willingly and knowingly violated our COVID safety rules, as well as state guidelines on safety endangering my life, and possibly the lives of students who would normally be in the car immediately after him. The fallout I got secondhand from Kat. Apparently she called the company owner, not sure how she got his number, and tried to scream at him. This doesn't go well, as he's deaf enough you could set off a truck bomb next to him and he'd think it was a firecracker. He told her to call the office when he understood enough to know there was a problem with lessons. Kat was screamed at for half an hour about how we were destroying her son's life, how he needed a license to have a job, and who would take his sister to school if he couldn't drive, and a litany of threats to sue us into bankruptcy and own all of us. I'd almost feel bad for the kid if not for the fact his driving terrifies me. And I've had students that couldn't make a left turn without jumping the curb on the left side of the road I was confident to teach till they could drive well. So approximately $500 wasted because one EP decided her baby learning to drive was more important than my health and hit a potentially fatal test result. No clue why they sent the email after his second lesson. But the amount of outrage after we informed other parents of the potential exposure made it nice to know we were justified. And I felt vindicated in my habit of wiping down the whole car with sanitizer between students.
Entitled Mom thinks it's okay to let her current husband drive her son's car by his dad while the son rides the bus. Disclaimer, not my story. Saw this on social media about an entitled mom and her husband and just had to share here. My ex-husband called my phone fussing at me. He recently bought our son a brand new Benz for his birthday and as a graduation present. My current husband had to get to work, so I told him to take my son's car because I had a couple of things to take care of and needed the Ultima today. He ended up dropping my son off at practice and told him to call me when he was done with practice so I can go pick him up. I overslept and missed my son's call to come and pick him up. My son called his dad, but his dad was out of town, so he ended up taking the city bus. This man called me fussing, saying, "I bought a car for my son, not some grown-ass man. I didn't like my son taking the bus. This is why I got him a car and paying the insurance on it and making the car payments." I hung up on him. Am I wrong for letting my current husband use my son's car?
My dad asks to borrow my car, then sells it. This was a long time ago. I hardly have any contact with that part of the family anymore, but I do still talk to my dad once in a while. My dad needed a car for a while, so I loaned him mine. When I went to get the car back, the back end was smashed in. My dad tells me how he was at a red light and the car was rear-ended. Of course, I asked the normal questions about fault and insurance and everything else. He tells me the other guy's insurance company sent him a check for the damages, but it wasn't enough to cover the repairs, a lie, so he didn't have the car repaired. Instead, he spent the money. My dad and I have the same first and last name, but a different middle name, so it's easy to see how he could claim the car was his and have the check written to him. When I told my dad that he should have just let me know about the accident and let me handle the claim, he says, "Why should you get anything? You weren't in an accident." I was. We had an argument about this, but none of my dad's argument was even anywhere close to being valid. He also just wasn't hearing any of what I had to say. I asked my dad to leave the car at his house for a few days and said I would arrange to have it picked up and repaired. A couple of days later, I went to his house, but I didn't see the car, so I thought he wasn't home. When I knocked, he answered. My younger brother was also there, which was surprising, because he was supposed to be away at college, which I was helping pay for, but that's another story. I told my dad I was there to pick up the car. He says that was impossible because he sold it. I asked him why he did that. He says, "You seem so pissed off about the damage. I figured you just want me to go ahead and sell it so you didn't have to deal with it anymore." I was making payments on the car and asked my dad how he could have sold it without the title. He told me he just had the guy fill out a lost title form or something like that. I don't even know the details on it. I told him that I thought there was going to be a problem when the guy tries to register the car and finds out there's a lien on the car. My dad says that's the buyer's problem, not mine. When I asked him how much he got for it, he told me he got $3,000. Even with the damage, it was worth closer to $7,000, but definitely no less than $5,000. I asked my dad for the money. He told me he already spent it. Then he goes into this rant about how many bills he has and how he's even paying for my brother's college. Not true. Plus, my brother was sitting right there. He dropped out, but didn't tell me, even though he kept cashing the checks I sent. I had very little contact with my parents after that, and I think I only actually saw them one time since then, which was around the time I got married, but not at the wedding because they refused to go. None of this was all that surprising, though. I never should have even loaned the car to my dad in the first place.
Check out my other wonderful videos.